Welcome back to the Highlight Your Healing podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Roan, and today we're going deeper into a kind of loss that doesn't always get the attention it deserves. When illness, disability, or a major life change reshapes who you are, how you move through the world, and what you thought your future would look like. My guest today knows this journey both personally and professionally. Ashley is both a survivor and a therapist, which means she brings something very rare to this conversation. She has lived it, and she helps others live through it. And her work is centered around helping people understand that even when life changes dramatically, healing and purpose are still possible. Ashley, I'm so honored to have you here, and welcome to Highlight Your Healing.
Thank you for having me. That was an awesome intro.
Thank you. I'm just really honored to have you here. But before we get into today's conversation, I would just love for you to just start by introducing yourself and telling us a little more about who you are and then walking us through your journey.
Absolutely. I'm Ashley. I'm a therapist based in Atlanta, Georgia, going on about year 5 or 6 in the mental health field. I feel like it's been so much longer. Right now, I'm kind of in a transitional phase. I spent like the last 2 years doing a lot of leadership work and doing a lot of individual counseling, and I hit a burnout wall last year. So right now, after a surgery that I had last year, or a couple surgeries I had last year, I'm kind of in this transitional phase of healing physically and mentally from last year and trying to make something that feels more sustainable for me.
Right. And sometimes it's good to take a pause, right? Just to
hmm
allow yourself to rest, give yourself permission to rest and to pause. If you don't mind just sharing with our listeners a little bit about your journey and what led you to where you are today.
No, absolutely. One of the reasons I really wanted to go on your podcast is because I really don't think we talk about grief enough in society. It's such a, I don't want to say a taboo topic, but people just don't know how to interact with it. And there's so many different forms of grief because I haven't experienced grief in the traditional sense of losing like a loved one, knock on wood. But I have experienced a lot of things that have led the grief of like identity or the loss of what could have been or what you thought life should have been. So a lot of that stems from, just to go back a bit, how do I start it off? Well, when I was like 8, like my mother kind of started I was uh, born fine, did not have any type of disability, no type of illnesses. Around the age of 8, my mom started noticing, girl, you're walking a little funny. And it's so interesting how that was like my first like recognition, like when I think about this story, recognizing medical racism as well, because my mother would take me to these doctors, like she could see something was wrong, like she could see I was not walking the way that I was supposed to, and these doctors would always just brush her off. Like it was a year of her going back and forth, like something is wrong, like she's not walking the way that she was able to walk like a year ago, until it got to the point where I literally could not walk anymore. I was literally struggling to walk any type of distance before the
Wow.
doctors were like, oh, maybe something is wrong. So they did a spinal tap. It's something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's like a very rare illness. Is basically when the nervous system starts to attack itself. Like the nervous system just decides to go haywire and attack the own body rather than protecting us from the outside illnesses that are supposed to be protecting us from. And it started to paralyze me. It almost made its way up to my brain by the time they had caught it. Like it had progressed quite severely. So it was just a year or two, well, like a year of me and my mother in the hospital, like with me literally fighting for my life. Like
Oh my
it
goodness.
was a really, and the weird, I think it's so interesting. I don't remember a lot of that. A
hmm
lot of this is secondhand information because I speculate my body just went through such an immense trauma with that, like the agony and the pain that I was in, literally just dealing with this illness, trying out the treatments that they were giving me, just with them just trying to save my life. I speculate my body just was like, girl, maybe you don't need to remember that.
Right. Just blocked it completely out.
Right.
Yeah.
So my memory of that year in the hospital is actually very limited. I do remember there was another little girl, ironically, around the same age as me, who had the same illness. Like these two girls around the same age with the same rare illness. I was like,
Mm.
sometimes I look back at things and I'm like, some things are too much to
It,
be a coincidence. Um, And one thing that I've dealt with as far, especially along the lines of grief, is she actually passed away. Like she actually succumbed
Ooh,
to her illness. And I've struggled or worked through a lot of, so she had completed her time on this earth, even though it was short. She had
right.
came here on this earth and done what she was supposed to do. There's clearly something that I am still here and supposed to be doing, and I'm still trying to figure that out. So
Hmm.
there was also the loss of innocence at that age, like the grief of not being able to just be a normal kiddo, right? Like, when you're a kid, if you're just growing up, you're carefree, you're jumping off
Right.
the tallest things, there's no cares in the world. And then when you're in the hospital fighting for your life, and then you see someone who's fighting for the same thing that you were and they pass away, everything becomes a lot realer, a lot earlier. It's like this life isn't so carefree and fun as it could be. So there was that aspect. I spent the next year after that trying to learn how to walk again. The
Mm.
doctors, again, I would chalk it up to medical racism. They were very much telling my mother she probably won't be able to walk again. You know, oh, well, might as well just give her a wheelchair and make her feel comfortable. And my mother, who is a Southern Baptist, a very strong figure, said, I wish I would not at least try to give my daughter the ability to walk again, especially, when I'm long gone. I don't want my daughter to have to rely on anybody or depend on anybody because she does not have the ability to walk. So it was another year or two of me having, like, I have very vivid memories of, like, there was a mall near where we lived and she would just force me. I remember the annoyance that I had. She would just make me walk up and down, up and down the hallway. There would be shopkeepers who would be cheering me on every
Hmm.
day. Afterwards, I'd
Hmm.
be like, can we go to the buffet afterwards? Can you at least give me a treat or something? You didn't
Right. I
work
need
for
some
me
ice
all
cream after
day.
this.
I'm tired. But lo and behold, I did regain my ability to walk. I really do credit my mother for being such an advocate for me. Like through the doctors, through the treatment, through the paralysis, my mother really showed up for me. Um, so went through all that. I still used a walker throughout my schooling years up through high school just because my mother was concerned about my balance. So there was that other isolating experience of being like the only disabled person in the general population because I was not in special education where all of the other disabled kids seemed to be. Everybody knew Ashley with the walker because Ashley was the smart, quiet kid who you could copy off her homework or whatever. So all of those experiences really does transition into how I ended up in counseling because I got to my undergrad at Mercer University in Georgia and I ended up getting really active in disability advocacy. Like it was really important to me, like with these experiences that I had, it was just really important for me to find a community of people who look like me, as far as who had experienced disability in some way, shape, or form, because I did not have peers or anybody who had had similar experiences like that growing up through all that. So it was important for me to find that community and give back to that community. So helped co-found one of the first student-run disability advocacy organizations at Mercer on the Macon campus. Woo woo, go Bears!
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, and what we found was a lot of it felt kind of like a support group. So our advocacy piece, but a lot of it would sometimes just be a bunch of disabled kids just expressing and supporting one another through the difficulties that come with having a disability of some sort in a world that is very inaccessible. So it felt like a support group. It really just felt like
Mhm.
me and my co-founder were running a support group at times. And that really naturally led into me like, wow, I really enjoy talking to people. I really enjoy the relational aspect of this work. I should go to counseling school. So lo and behold, here we are doing counseling work, doing the thing.
I love that, and thank you so much for sharing that, and kudos to your mom, right? She never gave up.
Mm-hmm.
She advocated for you, and, so many times, so many stories we hear of people in the Black and brown community where we're not believed or they
Mm-hmm.
feel like, that can't be true or we feel
Mm-hmm.
pain, we don't feel pain like everybody else or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be. So your mom is truly a blessing. Kudos to her for not giving up, to continue to push, getting second opinions and what that looked like during that time. Um, what was maybe one of the hardest parts of adjusting to your new reality, if you can remember that?
I think it was the isolation. I think because I was still battling so much, like between the ages of 8 and like 11 or 12, it really felt like such an isolating experience because I was still, even though I'd gained the ability to walk again, I was still, there were still weaknesses that would take longer periods of time to fully work through. So, I wasn't going outside with the kids much. I
Right,
wasn't, my siblings were so much older than me. I didn't really have siblings in the household to talk to as well. You don't always want to hang out with your parents either. So
right.
I spent a lot of time alone. Like it was
Mhm.
me and my books. It was me and my Disney Channel. It was me and my Nickelodeon.
So you
I
caught
can
up on all the shows.
all the shows, all the
Mhm.
books. I think I do credit that with it's so easy for me to just sit with my own thoughts, especially in this day and age where there's dopamine hits everywhere. Like lots of people just need something to look at and stimulate. I never really needed it because I had so much practice just sitting with my own thoughts and being with myself and entertaining myself. So I
Right.
think the isolation aspect really played a large role in probably still how I interact with people today. I still identify as an introvert. I think as the counseling field has been so healing for me in its own way because it really has brought back up how much of a relational person I am, how much I do enjoy being around folks. But yeah, I think the hardest part was the isolation piece, not being
Mhm.
able to feel like the normal kiddo, not being able to have the normal childhood experiences because of what I'd been through and how much I really had to grow up with all that I had been through. Even nowadays, my whole life I've gotten, you seem so mature for your age. And I'm like, yeah, I can probably pinpoint why. I lost some innocence at a very young age, and I doubt that did
Mhm.
not come without its consequences.
When did you realize that life could still hold meaning or purpose after everything
Mhm.
changed, even though, I've been through all of this at a very young age?
Probably when I went to college, probably later in the college years. I think, elementary, middle, and high school, you're just trying to survive through school. You're still
Right,
trying to find yourself. You're still trying to find out who you even are and what you like, what you dislike, not being friends, et cetera, et cetera. I think in college, when I was on my own for the first time as well, like when there wasn't as much of a parental overhead, because obviously my parents were very protective, which makes sense they'd almost lost me. So I
right.
grew up with parents that were very protective. So once I got to college, I was like, oh, there's some freedom here. There's nobody to tell me what to do. Somebody
Right,
tell me how
mom
to
and dad are
dress.
not here.
They are
Exactly.
not here. I'm an hour and a half away. As long as my grades are well, they don't need to know anything else. So I think going to college and again finding that I craved community. I
Mhm,
I think that the illness had made me such an introvert because of the fears that I developed as a result of the illness. So I was so introverted in elementary, middle, and high school. So once I went to college, I was like, this is my chance to just try stuff out and see where I do and do not blossom. And I wanted that community of other people
mhm,
who could resonate with me and resonate with my story. And I think that's why finding other disabled folks and finding other disabled kiddos was so important to me because it was like, oh, not only can I vibe with these people, I can also pour into them because not everybody had the same support system that I'd had. Not
right,
everybody maybe had the willingness or the voice to or the ability or the knowledge on how to speak up for other folks the way that I did. So I did find that I naturally gravitated towards the advocacy aspect. And it was like, oh, so I went through these really awful things in my earlier life. I can now use it for something meaningful. And that's really transformative because it's like I didn't go through this for no reason. I didn't
right.
go through this just to have this awful thing happen to me. I can take this experience and use it as a form of fuel to help other people who, even if they don't directly relate to my story, maybe they resonate with having something difficult happen or almost losing themselves or almost losing someone else, and they can take from it what they need and leave what they don't. And again, that naturally led into the counseling as well. Um,
Hmm.
Being able to advocate for my clients, being able to advocate for other therapists. It's, I think that what I went through made me a very strong person. I think it grew me up really fast, for better or for worse. And I do think it made me a really strong, resilient person. And I don't take that for granted because I can use that strength to help other people.
I want to just go back to when you were talking about community. Support in
Mhm.
community is so important when you're navigating life's challenges and transitions in life. So, in addition to that, what would you say to someone who feels like maybe their life has been completely altered by illness, disability, or loss? Anything outside of having that supportive community that you would share with someone?
I would say that when you do feel ready, I would never knock somebody who needs to take time to just get themselves together. To
Right.
just take a chance to breathe, and if that means just sitting with the self and processing with the self for a bit, that's totally okay. But when you do feel like you have the ability to branch out and seek, you know, help in whatever way that means, there are so many people that are willing and able and are just begging for the chance to help you more than likely. I think we underestimate just how much people do enjoy showing up for us. I know I've struggled with that. I think the illness can sometimes make me hyper independent.
Hmm.
Dealing with disability, you can feel like people underestimate you. So it's like, oh, so you think I'm not as good as you? Bet I'll just get 20 degrees, and then you won't be able to, won't be able to tell me nothing. But having finding people who want to be there for you and show up for you and actually utilizing them and actually asking for help can be so monumental in the healing process, because I do believe a lot of healing is relational. I do believe that when we are interacting with other people, even if it's not direct venting, or even if it's not directly asking for help, even if it's not just direct healing process, interacting with other people can absolutely just open something up in the heart. And it can be a full body experience. So
Hmm.
when you do feel like you're ready and you feel like you're able, I think it would be a great idea to seek some community. If you, not everybody has that, but I found that like the folks who don't have community, then they usually just go and make their own communities. If you don't have
Hmm.
family, if you don't have friends, there are so many like amazing groups, even in Atlanta, that are just a hodgepodge of folks who have felt like misfits. So they found other people who felt like misfits, and they've been able to create their own family. And it's always such a beautiful sight to see. Um,
Absolutely. No,
yeah.
it truly is to find community, that support system. Do you feel like you have to, I guess, explain to people that may not know what your disability is, just in communication and passing, or people that's not a part of your community?
I think I've started to have to explain more, but it's because I've been more intentional about meeting new folks. I've been being
Okay.
intentional about expanding my community and networking with other people. And, just for context, so I can walk, but I do still have to wear leg braces just to help me get around. Depending on the pants I wear, it can be visible or it cannot be visible. So it really just depends on the day about whether people will even be able to really tell that I have a disability. But, if somebody sees the leg braces, they're usually like, hmm, like they've
Mhm.
never seen it before. And nobody's ever really rude about it. So if they ask, what are those? Did you break your foot or something? And then
Mhm.
I usually give them the short version. So
Right.
I don't go into my whole childhood trauma background, but I usually do find myself having to explain it, and I don't mind it as much because it's usually well intentioned. Folks are asking because they're curious and they haven't seen it before. And I think the more that I'm willing and the more that I'm open to explaining things, it can make other people feel more comfortable about the idea of disability too. Because disability is a lot more widespread than I feel like people like to believe. Like, even
Mhm.
if maybe you're somebody who identifies as able bodied, more than likely all of us are going to experience disability in some aspect during our life, even if it's just with age. The knee's not going to knee as much as in the 50s and 60s as they did in the 20s and 30s. So at some
Right.
point, you might not be able to pop it and drop it like it's hot as much as you
No more
could.
magnies.
No more magnies. And that could be, so in some cases, that could be considered a disability. If you got to sit down real slow, you technically have a
Listen, no
disability,
more
dear.
99 taking up a pill to 2000s. We passed that point.
We passed that point. So all of us are going to experience disability at some point. And I think the more that we as a society can become comfortable with it, the more that I can contribute to that comfort by just talking openly about the difficulties I've had, even at my younger age. I think it just helps all of us, because the more accessibility helps all of us. Ramps and elevators, it helps all of us.
Just looking back now, how has that life-changing experience shaped the person you are today? I know you're taking a pause to rest, so you're giving yourself permission today. Is there anything else that you can think of that has shaped you into who you are today? Maybe less apologetic for a situation. What does that look like?
That's a great question. Especially as I've started to come into my own more, I absolutely believe there's been an unapologeticness happening, because there can be freedom. Like I grew up knowing that I was not like the other kiddos. I did not look like the other kiddos. I would not fit in with other kiddos in the traditional sense. But I was still able to find people who rocked with me, and I rocked with them. Um, but there can be a freedom in knowing I will never fit some of these standards. I will never fit the able-bodied standard or the typical, like I had to, for example, it impacted what major I had, because I was like, I know I can't do physical labor. I wouldn't be able to do like a carpentry job or something where I need to be on my feet all day. So I had to find an industry where I would be able to sit and do my job. But there can be an unapologeticness that comes with, I know I don't fit some of these standards, so I can just show up as I want to show up. I can show up as authentically as possible, because y'all gonna find something not to like anyway. So I can just, y'all are going to have your stares and have your comments anyway about the way that I walk. So I might as well just show up the way that I show up, and show up in all my fabulousness, and leave it at that.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
it. And I think even, like I touched on it earlier, I think another thing that has shaped it is I've been working on it, my proneness to hyperindependence. I do think I think part of that's cultural as well, growing up as a Black woman. I think
Right.
there can absolutely be a cultural aspect of hyperindependence to that too, on top of growing up disabled. So there's like a double, oh, you can or cannot do this, that, and the third. So I'm like, cool, I have to show you. So now I have to overachieve. Now I have to get the top grades in my school. Now I have to get multiple degrees. I still want a PhD, even though I know I don't need a PhD. Lord, I know I don't need a PhD, but I might come
What's one
back.
more letter? What's one more
What's
letter
one
behind
more
the name?
letter? It's just another 6 years of my life, it'll be over before I know it. But no, so the hyper independence has been a blessing and a curse. It's made me a very high achieving person. But also, like I said, I've been trying to expand my community and utilize my community by asking for help more to kind of combat some of that hyper independence. So those are the two main things that come to mind in response to your question.
Thank you. So if there's someone listening today that feels like life has changed them in ways that they didn't choose, what would
Mhm.
you want them to know about rebuilding and finding purpose again?
I think free will is a beautiful thing. I started off by that. Started off like that because even, like, for example, in my case, even though life did not go the way that I thought it would, it has been such a blessing to be able to see it blossom in a way that still feels fulfilling. And that took a lot of work on my part. That took a lot of healing. That took a lot of my own therapy. That took a lot of my own investment to make this life into something that, even though it's not what I thought it would be, this life still feels worth living. Being around people that makes life still feel like it's worth living. Uh, Being in a field and a job that makes life feel like it's still worth living. So even though things might feel very broken and shattered right now, I think, again, I think it's okay to sit with that and process that. But it's also okay to start pouring back into yourself, to start putting those pieces back together at your own pace, at whatever rate you feel is right for you, so that you can get to a place where you can look back and say, wow, that was a really crappy experience, but now I can turn that and change it into something that is helpful for both me and others, because now it is a part of your story. It sucks that it had
Right.
to be a part of your story. I always tell people, I wish that wouldn't have happened to me and my family. I wish they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have had to have that awful experience of seeing their child almost die. But it is now a part of our story, and how do we take it and use it in a way that doesn't continue to break us down and can uplift ourselves and others.
Right. Wow. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing both your lived experience and the work you're doing to support others, because it's one thing to walk through something that changes your life, but it's another to come out on the other side and help other people navigate it too. What you
Yeah.
shared today is a reminder that healing is not linear, and life changing you does not have to be the end of your story. So, Ashley, before we close, can you share with our listeners where they can connect with you and learn more about the amazing work you're doing?
Absolutely. I'm on, oh goodness, let me look it up. Hold on. My Instagram and my TikTok have two different names, unfortunately. I gotta do, but I do have a TikTok. You can find me at Cosmic Counseling, Ashley PLPC. You can find me on Instagram at The Cosmic Counselor. So I'll standardize that at some point. But for right now, those are the two platforms you can find me on.
If you want to connect with Ashley, all of her information will be in the show notes. So please go show her some love and support the work she's doing. If this episode resonated with you, do me a favor, share it. Send it to a friend, a family member, somebody in your circle who needs to hear that healing and purpose are still possible for them. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, because trust me, we have more incredible guests and conversations coming your way. And if you haven't already, like and leave us a review. It helps more women find this show and join this community. And until next time, keep highlighting your healing.